game for you in this lesson. It's a typing game. So the objective is to type the words that are going to be displayed here at the top as quickly as possible and as well accurately to the words that are being presented. So you hit start, you get presented with a phrase. You've got a text area here where you can type into. So do you like Java? And if I misspell it, I get a score of 9.793 seconds, score of 2 out of 4. So let's try that one more time. And this is also case sensitive as well. So now we've got a 3 out of 4. And do you like JavaScript? And hit done. And that's going to return back a 4 out of 4. And of course, you can update the styling as needed as well. So we'll start by creating a blank HTML file. We'll call it typer.html. And then we're going to link to a JavaScript file by the same name. So saving it as typer.js, and that's going to be within the same folder. And we'll create a few elements on the page. So we do need a text area. So we'll select that. We can give it a name. So this can be called words. And we'll set some styling to it as well. And I'll just call it typer. And then just below it, let's add a button. So this is going to be a clickable button. And we'll just have start for now. So we want to select these elements from the page. I'm going to add in some styling to it. So width 100%, height of 200 pixels. And then you can adjust these as needed. And for the button, I'll give it a class of button. And of course, you can do all of this with JavaScript as well. Just to save some time. So I'm doing a width 100%. And I'll do a font size for the button to be fairly large. And add some padding. So there's our start button. You can also do a background color if you want. And a color of white. So start, and that's going to trigger the start of the game. So let's select these elements. So first off, the main container. So using the document and query selector, selecting the element with a class of main. And then we want to select all of the type area. So that's going to be the main text area. So we can select it by its class of typer. So using the document and query selector again, select the element with a class of typer. And there's always various ways to make the selection. And also for the button, using query selector, selecting the element with a class of button. So that will select all of those elements into JavaScript objects. So what we want is we want the game to start out when we click the start. And we also want to have some content to load. So the wording that we want people to be able to type. And this can just be an array. You can have different wording here. Do you like JavaScript? So that can be the first phrase that gets typed. The second phrase that we can type. Fun with code, and so on. So you could add as many items there within the wording as needed. Also, we want to apply an event listener to the button. So add an event listener. So whenever the button gets clicked, we invoke the function. And to start out, so this is going to start the game. So set the inner text. And we're going to check to see if the button text is start. So just as we've done in earlier lessons, so see if the text content is start. And if it is, then that means that we want to start the gameplay. And we'll run a function called playGame. Else we'll check to see if the button text content is done, and that means that we're wrapping up the game. So if it's done, then we want to run this code. So by default, we want to take the type area. So by default, we want to take the type area and set the disabled to be true. And when we click start, we want to set the disabled to be false so that we're ready to start typing into it. And once we're done, then we'll take the disabled to be true. So right now we can't type into the text area, so only when we press start, then that's when we start the gameplay. So let's create a function to handle the playing of the game. And whenever we start the gameplay, then we want to output into the main area the text that needs to be typed. So we need to select a random item from the array. So let's get our random text, and using the math floor and then math random, we multiply by the wording length. So that will give us a random index value from the array, and then we can use that and update the text area with it. And that's the area that we've got for main. So let's add and set up the text content to be equal to. And we've got the value from wording, and then also within the random, we've got the index value that we can use for it. So it'll automatically put the text content to this value. So when we hit start, and that's showing the text content, let's apply a bit of styling to main. So main, and we'll do a text align, and we'll center align the text, add some padding to the text, 10 pixels, font size, so make it relatively large for the font size. So that's the words that need to be typed. We're able to do the typing. I'm going to actually shrink the text area size. And we can actually do it even smaller. So the objective is to type the content just as it's being displayed in the main area. I'll also put a border around it. And I'll update the border color. So we'll take main style, border color, and set that to be equal to red. So that'll give us a red border when we're active. And then if the user presses done, then we're going to go back to a white border. And let's update this to be white as well. So just so that it aligns with what we've got for the current colors, so that can be white. So do you like JavaScript? And actually, let's make the border a little bit wider there. So right now it's going to go red while we're ready to type. We need to track the start time, and we need to also update the button. Instead of saying that the content is to start, we want to update the button text content to be equal to done, so that we have a way to finish the game. So just equal it to done. And then that's going to stop the gameplay, and we need to do the tracking. So let's pick up the current date, and we need to set some object values here for the game. So within the game object, we're going to have a start time, and then also we'll have an end time as well. So track the start and end times. And then we'll also have that information tracked directly within the game. So whenever the play game starts, Then let's grab the date, get the current date value. So this is coming from the browser value of the current date. And then for game start, we'll track whatever the date get time is. So it's going to return back a Unix timestamp. And as we're playing the game, so it's going to have a clock ticker running in the background there. So we also want to have a auction for end game. So whenever we click done, then we want to end the gameplay. So let's create a function for that. And this is going to calculate the speed that the content was typed at. And we need to also grab the date here as well. And instead of game start, we'll have game end. We'll get the current end time. And we'll calculate out the total time. So that's going to be with the values of the game end subtracting the game start, and that will give us the time in between. We're going to divide it by 1,000 so we get a value within seconds, because by default the get time is milliseconds. Let's get the content of the main type area, and then we can compare it to the content of the selected message area. So type area, value, and this is actually going to go into user content that they typed, and then we'll have another one for the array text that the user has to type. And so right now they're just going to be blank strings. So once we start the game, just to go back to here where we're going to get the text content, and we can add in to the game object the array text value. And this is what the user needs to type. Let me just fix the spacing there. And over here where we're ending the play, this is what the user actually typed. So we've got the typed value here from the user as the text area. So what we want to do is we want to actually do a comparison. We're going to compare the two values and see if the user got them correct. So we'll create a variable value for correct, check result, and that can be a function that will check the result, and then we'll output to the user. So let's create a placeholder for that. So check result function. And then also when we end the play, then what we want to do is we want to provide a message to the user. So we can use that main area as well for the message to the user. And let's update the border of main first. So set it back to white. And then main inner HTML. And I'm going to use the backticks there. You typed at, and here we can include the total time. So the time is whatever the total seconds are. And then we're going to also update the button text content to be start once again. So we can kick off the start process and the user can have another opportunity to type. And we'll do the checking of the result as well. So do you like JavaScript? And looks like we threw an error there. So end game is not defined, and that actually should be end play. So let's update that, start again. You typed, and that's how many milliseconds I typed the content in. So next we need to also do a comparison of the two results. So we've got the content within the game user, and then we've also got the content within the game array. And we need to find what the difference is between the two. So that's what we can do within the game result. So let's have the value 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to split the content by spaces. So that will give us the two different words that we have. And value 2. So this is what was supposed to be typed, and then the game user content is what the user actually typed. And we'll check to see which words are correct. So let's create a value for score, set that to 0. And let's loop through the words, so for each. And this is going to be value of the word. And we're taking the content from what was supposed to be typed, and we're going to compare to see if the value of word is equal to the value of val2, and then whatever the index value is. So we need to track the index value as well. And this will check to see if the words are correct, and we'll increase the score if the words are correct. And what we'll do is we'll just return back whatever the value of score is. And we'll do that within an object format. So score will return back whatever the value of score is. And we'll also have a value for total. And total will be whatever we've got for val1 length. So it's going to return back an object into correct. And for now, we'll just log out the results of correct. And then we can output that in the message to the user. So let's see how things go. Do you like? We got a score of 3 correct out of 4. So we can add that into the inner HTML as well. So that's the time. Score is going to be correct score out of, and then this is going to be correct total. Let's set the word wrap so that we can see all of the syntax on one line and try that again. Do you like? And let's see what happens if I do you like JavaScript. So it took 5.729 seconds, score of 3 out of 4. Let's start it again. And whenever we start it, we need to clear out the existing content that's within the text area. So type area value equals blank. So that way we can replay. And actually, this should be just done whenever we hit start, so that the user can actually see what they've typed. And once they get the score for that, I'm going to make the main score area slightly smaller so that it fits into one line. And so this is how you can create a quick typing game that will check to see the accuracy as well as the time it takes in order to complete the typing.